Right, guys, I'd like to talk about a subject which I'm quite interested in, and I keep trying to work it out for myself. And it's pretty amazing, really. And people talk about depopulation being a bad thing. And I keep thinking, is it? Or is overpopulation worse? And I think the two countries I compare and know about, I think I know which one I prefer, and that's depopulation. Right, so if you look at a chart of countries, the whole world, and compare the population density, i.e. people per square metre, or square kilometre, or square mile, and compare them and see how they're doing, then there's no fixed formula as to countries doing well or doing otherwise. There's countries right next to each other in the statistics, which one's a basket case and one's doing well, and probably with similar resources. Like Haiti doesn't do it; it's a basket case, and probably Venezuela and places like that. But Venezuela have got arguably one of the best and biggest resources ever, which they say is in short supply, which is oil. And so a lot of things don't make sense, and you've got it. There's about five, I would say four or five variables in the formula to how a country does in relation to population density. And they are, first of all, the size of the land, the actual country, and sometimes maybe the shape of it. So it's the size of the country. Secondly is the resources, natural resources of the country, which is can it be self-sufficient. I think all countries should be aiming not for net zero. I think they should be aiming for self-sufficiency and being productive in that way. Each country should not be relying on other countries, because that can be deemed as kind of exploitation or whatever. And it's certainly not green, is it? Importing and exporting things all over the place when you can get them in your backyard with a bit of effort, So there's that one, and then there's other factors, which is infrastructure. The infrastructure now in the UK is crumbling, because it's never been upgraded to feed, to service the amount of people. It's kind of stayed the same by and large, and it's struggling. Everything's on the brink. Everything's on full use, full alert. Everything's just tipping over the edge. That's my opinion, anyway. And like in Bulgaria, where I am now. So if you compare the population density of England, it's misleading. If you look at the UK, it's misleading, because Scotland's big and there's nobody lives there compared with England, right? So if you look at the population density of England, not Scotland and Wales, England, because I think they may even put them together, maybe to mislead people, I don't know. But it's hard to find sometimes. And some of the stats they only say the UK. UK's not a country. It's a United Kingdom. It's not a country because they have their own parliaments and everything. So England is 438 people per square kilometre, and Bulgaria is 62. It's exactly, and it's a similar in size of land area, and I think that counts as well, and also the land quality, because like Russia, there's nobody lives there. It's only like no one lives there. In Canada, on a square kilometre basis, so you may even have to bring that into another thing on useful land. But like useful land in Russia, there's nothing there, but it's what's under the ground that matters there, like the gas and the all the coal and everything, and that counts big time. That's your energy. You've got energy and food. That's what you need for a workable model, surely. So you got all these things, and then you've got the people, and some people do better than others. And historically, Northern Europeans are doing better historically, not now, because they're committing suicide now. It's a mass suicide pact, and who knows why they're doing that. But anyway, they may be being led by other people who aren't Northern Europeans. Who knows? But anyway, they're different things. So you can get basket cases, and you can also get very, very, very densely populated places like Monaco. And I lived in Gibraltar for 8 years, which is the fifth most densely populated, and it doesn't feel like it really when you're there. It was quite manageable. You'd expect everyone like sardines, and there's a lot of people there, obviously, but like it wasn't all this high-rise stuff, and the most you were getting is about eight stories or whatever, and it was moving. You could always get around in a car or a scooter, whatever. It wasn't gridlocked, but you would expect it to be, because most of it's the rock, but it wasn't, and I don't. So and I would put that down to the number of people as well. You've got to take into account, that was the other thing I missed in the 4 or 5 things. It's the actual number of people in the country as well, the population size, not density. And it doesn't matter how big or small it is, the amount of people is manageable. Then you're halfway there, because it's mouths to feed then, and that counts a lot in Bulgaria, because with the resources we've got here, the amount of people, as opposed with the resources and the water and all the rest of it, makes it pretty much, Bulgaria could pretty much be, or it could be, self-sufficient, probably 100%, if at a push. They get other things from other countries, but they're not actual necessities for life. It's like, and things like that, like importing cars, and because they don't make cars here. That's one of the things they don't do, and probably they should. They had a go, but they were kind of just putting things together, and it's closed now, I think, just in the next town, which is called the Great Wall, and they're putting like pickup trucks and just out of components, so there was no actual manufacturing going on here. I think they should do. I think they should start making cars here. Most of Eastern Europe are doing well making cars, especially Romania. They make the Dacia, and a lot of the stuff is moved to other places like Hungary. There's a lot of stuff made for Mercedes there. So that's another thing, is the population actual size, which means mouths to feed. Now, if you're on just-in-time shopping and all that, like the UK, you only need a few components to go wrong for there to be a little bit of trouble, you know. And then you've got the infrastructure of, obviously, there's more people on the roads there, and so they make more pollution, stuff like that. So the same size of country, it's very similar to Bulgaria. There's a few. I think Bulgaria's a little bit maybe bigger. I don't know. They're very similar. But there's 7 times the amount of people. So that's 7 times the amount of mouths to feed. 7 times the amount of roads and cars and everything you need. And that's quite big comparing 2 countries. And when here, it doesn't really feel depopulated. As, you know, they say it's a disaster and all the rest of it. I don't think it is. I don't think it feels empty. Some places do, in the remote places now. But they're trying to do that. Back in the UK, rewilding. We've already got wild here. We don't have to rewild. It's already wild. And actually, with the depopulation, the forest has increased by 20% in just over a decade. 20%. The reforesting. I don't know. They haven't replanted anything. Don't think they it just grows. I can see that by the land behind the house here. That used to be mostly pasture, and it's nearly all trees now. And they grow like billy-o. They grow like mad. And it's a good thing, really, here, because, you know, on the steep hills, when it's forested, it's better for holding water and stuff like that, and landslides. So there's all sorts of things you've got to take into account with population. And my question always is, what's the ideal density, population density? And also, what's the ideal size for a town? And I think I had one of those questions really answered, or a city. I think I had one of those questions answered by going to Romania. There's a load of cities there, between 250,000 and 300,000. And we went to like 4 of them on this year. And I think that's a good size for it. If you're looking at a big city, I think you don't want to be getting to like a millions big, you know, getting big. But anything after that, you're talking, you know, these places like London and, you know, these huge places. If things go wrong or dramatically, which you think they will do actually, in the UK, the food, what they're doing in the UK at the moment with the farmers and that, they should be promoting farming. I mean, this guy in Romania, that's what he wants to do. He wants to do more farming, not less. This Georgescu, who's deemed as a far-right nutcase, he wants to do more farming. Work that out. And that's the mentality of the wokeness. So those cities were workable. If I was going to live in a city, which I wouldn't do now, anyway, I don't think I'd ever live in a city again. I might live in the outskirts, overlooking a city, like 20 minutes out. I mean, you soon get into the wilderness in these places because a lot of them are locked in by mountains and that, so quite compact. Like the place where we ended up, the last place where we stayed and had a good look around was Cluj-Napoca, and that's surrounded by mountains. But once you get out, it's about 20 minutes. You're in the sticks, you know. So that'd be okay for me. Get just outside the city, looking in or looking down on all that comes before us. Now, living in the city, I'd never do that. Never do that again, because of probably mostly the Wi-Fi. You know, the Wi-Fi's horrendous in cities now. You only got to look on your phone to see what you're surrounded by. You know what's going on in the that you can't see in the ethos. So population density, it doesn't really figure on, like, when you look at which countries are doing well and which countries aren't. It's kind of a formula between all the 3, 4 or 5 things, like the size of the country, the size of the population, the resources, what you've got, and the weather even, you know. And things like that, and they all add up. And if they've got coastline, if they haven't, you know, it does benefit, I think, any country to have a coastline. That seems to, anyway, than landlocked countries. And we've got a coastline here, and the UK's got a huge, you know, it's an island, and they've got plenty of coast and plenty of sea. And they've seemed to have benefited from that in the past. Whether they do or not now, I don't know. But there's all these types of things, and the weather, you know, then you can have tourism. We've got everything here. Bulgaria's got everything, tourism-wise. Everything that you need. And even the infrastructure now is nearly, probably up to scratch now. I would say. And so, what's the best population densities? Now, I've found in the last few years, and I've looked at, it's more or less all around, the Balkans is more or less all around 70 people per square kilometre. Now, wherever I go in the Balkans, it doesn't feel empty. You know, they say all these people are leaving. Well, it's a lot worse being in the UK where it's crowded, you know. It's not like Gibraltar or Hong Kong or Macau, where all the people live there, and it's like it's just a beehive, you know. It's like the UK's trying to be a country with countryside and all that, but like all it does is create traffic. And a lot of it, you know, a lot of traffic. And there's a lot of mouths to feed, and people are more spread out, like say in Hong Kong or Singapore, and everyone's jammed in. But they can make it work better, in a way, because everything's geared up to, like, people being in this small space, you know. And I think it works better than, like, sprawling. Like I've seen a couple of documentaries in the past on suburbs and why they're just a drain on suburbs, because the city's got to upkeep these suburbs, and all the people have got to drive cars on a sprawl. You know, it's hard to service them with public transport and stuff like that, unless it's a compact city. And there's all these factors, all these different factors on why a place is going to work and why it isn't. And I think a lot of them is against the UK for a few reasons I've mentioned. And one of them is what it's fast becoming is not self-sufficient in either energy or food. The way they're going, that's the way they're going, which is going to be, I think, a disaster. And I predicted that, and I've got the podcast to prove it. Well, not the podcast, the blog. It was a blog to prove that I was seeing this years ago, maybe 2016 probably. I thought, hang on a minute, this is going the wrong way, and it's been going the wrong way ever since. In every way imaginable, and it's only seems to be getting worse. And they think everywhere else is getting worse, and you look at the American YouTubers, and they think everywhere's like America, and it isn't. There's places that are doing okay, like here and all around. Romania, I've just been to Romania. You know, there's nothing there. They're not doing badly anyway, and they're not doing badly here. And they're realising about the energy and all that. And the one thing we've got on tap, kind of, is we're close to energy now. We're close to, it's not far to Azerbaijan, Iraq, and Iran. They've got all the energy, and Russia, everything. I mean, they're still getting Russian energy, but it just goes through Turkey and becomes Turkish energy, which is the other way they've done it. And they did it because they were rug pulled by the US and the EU. So they sent it through Turkey, which has worked out better now with all the sanctions. So there's all these factors, and I don't know what people think about this, all these factors about population density and and the factors involved, and how countries do better than others, and even more so now, being self-sufficient with the energy costs and transport costs. I think being energy sufficient and as local as possible, which is what it is here where I live. You know, the focus is much more on now is on local stuff. You know, local. You know, all my energy, wood power comes from the forest here, locally, and all the food that I need to live can be sourced locally. You know, you got your eggs, your bread, everything's local. Even the wheat is not. It's only, you know, a few miles down the road to the wheat fields, and we've got silos even here to feed the bread factories and stuff like that, and you can grow food here, and there's fruit trees everywhere, and all sorts of things. Bees, we've got a massive bee population now. A lot of people are beekeeping, and so that's a good thing. And it also tells you another thing as well. When bees thrive, that they're not like spraying, killing everything with pesticides, and then saying, "Oh, the bees are there committing suicide." That's what they say in other places. Things like that. And the water, it people are worried. The locals here are a bit worried about the water. My road trip manager's a bit worried, and he's very old, but he's still worried about his generations below him, And the water seems to be, whether it'll improve, but it seems to be declining a little bit. Not like critically, but like noticeably. So we'll see how that goes, But maybe they'll just have to start drilling for the water instead of it percolating out of the aquifers, and running off with the snow, because they don't get as much snow as they used to. They used to get a lot of water percolating then, because it's a good source of water, snow, because it melts slowly and that'll give you a better feed than just the downpours, which just run off into the rivers and into the sea. Snow's good, and so let's hope we have a bit more snow this winter. We had a reasonable amount last winter, but so I wonder what people think about population density, and it's definitely not great to have huge population densities unless it's a small amount of people. There's a difference. If you've got a big population like the UK and it's also a big population density, that's like the musical chairs. If the music stops at the wrong time, there's only so many chairs for people. But if you've got a small population like Gibraltar, and I lived there for 8 years, then there's not so many mouths to feed. There's only 25,000 mouths to feed, which is not a lot. If you've got all these side hustles, but basically it's just one big laundering place for everything. They've got offshore companies, money laundering, smuggling. They've got the lot, everything. Don't produce anything, just all criminal activities. But it thrives, and there's only 25,000 people there, and a lot of them used to, I don't know about now, work for the MOD, which have got a big presence there, and NATO. There's a big presence in the Rock, and I've worked inside the Rock, and all the NATO boys are in there. They wear purple jumpers, purple hats. They're the NATO men, the bigwigs, and they're right in the middle of the Rock, Fraggle Rock. Okay, so there's just a few ideas about why countries do better and what's the best population density and the best size for a city or a town. I think a town, the best size is about 40,000, and then you can get a bit of competition going then, and enough competition for it to be, if you just get one guy doing the candlesticks and one guy doing it's not really that. You need a few of everything, a bit of everything, so there's a bit of competition in each town, and then when you get to 40,000 you can have about 5. We've got about 4 to 5 decent size factory industries, different industries. So it's the recipe for success, and tourism in all the satellite. That's where I am, in the satellite areas, and wood, and there's all sorts going on. Bees. So if you can get a real diverse thing going around the town as well as what's going on in the town, decent little industrial areas, and things move, then the traffic's moving, and people there, and people do okay then, because everyone's working, and then everything else thrives, doesn't it? Everything else comes after that, knock on. People go and eat out, people go and buy things in shops, and it becomes a decent town. Okay, cheers.